So guys, I can't lie, today we have a pretty dodgy report on the iPad mini Pro, because yes, apparently that's still happening, except it's gonna be way more powerful and way more expensive than we initially thought. So the information comes from a Twitter leaker called Tron, who is pretty accurate when it comes to Android leaks, but he's pretty patchy when it comes to Apple stuff, and also some of this report just makes no sense to me, so do bear that in mind. Definitely find as much salt as you can and keep it with you as we delve in. So the first tidbit actually relates to a report we got from Kang a few months ago, which basically said the iPad mini redesign was in the early design stage, and well, apparently this source claims that the iPad mini redesign has passed this design stage, which basically means the design has been finalized for the most part. Though do note, they do still have a long way to go in terms of development, and so things can change, and in this case I think a lot of things are going to be changing. Right, so let's begin with the display size. So it's going to be 8.7 inches. We heard about this from other leakers too, so that's likely the most legit part of this leak. And obviously this means that the new iPad mini Pro is going to be actually quite a bit wider than the existing iPad mini. And honestly, no one knows as to why. If I'm going to guess, I think it might be due to the fact that maybe Apple can't fit the components needed for the redesign in the 7.9 inch form factor. Right, so the next part of this leak is where things start to get a little dodgy. So first of all, they mentioned the colors are going to be silver and grey. That is a pretty major red flag for me, because all this time I have been under the assumption that the iPad mini redesign would be a smaller version of the iPad Air, because of course historically the iPad mini has been a smaller version of the iPad Air, and so I thought that everything apart from the size would be exactly the same as the iPad Air. So the colors, the chip, the RAM, the lack of 120Hz, pretty much identical in terms of specs and features to the iPad Air 4. However, the fact the iPad mini Pro just gets silver and grey does kind of lead me to believe that this iPad mini Pro might be based on the iPad Pro instead of the iPad Air 4. And while things do get a little more sus, because the next feature they mention is 5G support. Why are we getting 5G support on an iPad mini? I have no clue, but again, the fact this has the same 5G support as the bigger iPad Pros does kind of lead me to believe that maybe we could see other specs from the iPad Pro come over to the iPad mini Pro. So much like the iPhone 12 and 12 mini share pretty much identical specs, it's likely that maybe this iPad mini Pro could share the same 120Hz display, the same M1 chip, in a bloody iPad mini. That would be absolutely ridiculous. But also, maybe the same cameras, maybe the same 8 gigs of RAM, maybe even 16 gigs of RAM. That would be ludicrous. But anyways, Apple might be giving us the same identical specs we have on the iPad Pro in the iPad mini Pro. And that's where this report kind of falls apart for me, because if you think about it, why would someone need this? Who is the iPad mini Pro for? Because obviously Apple can justify giving us a ton of overkill specs with the iPad Pro because they can be laptop replacements. But no one can use an 8.7 inch tablet as their main computer. That would be absolutely painful. So yeah, the iPad mini is more suited as a leisure tablet, basically for reading stuff, watching videos, doing some gaming, very light stuff, but definitely not pro-worthy. So that's why I think it makes more sense that this iPad mini Pro is more similar to the iPad Air 4, and of course targets average consumers instead of focusing on prosumers. But here's the real kicker, guys. $650. That might be the price of this iPad mini Pro. I'm speechless, because that's absolutely insane for a tablet. No, Apple won't do this. I'm sorry guys, but this is where the report becomes a little hard for me to believe, because of course, within its own bubble, $650 for, of course, M1, 120Hz, and Pro-end cameras doesn't seem like a bad deal, especially since it could be $150 less than the 11-inch iPad Pro. However, that's within a bubble, and if you take into context prices of the other iPads in the lineup, $650 for an iPad mini Pro against a $600 iPad Air makes absolutely zero sense. Now yes, hypothetically this iPad mini Pro could have 120Hz and the M1 to justify the higher price, but if you take a look at Apple's pricing strategy, they never price two products $50 apart, and essentially this iPad mini Pro and this iPad Air could be competing with each other, and it would confuse the lineup in my opinion. But also you have to note, $400 for the iPad mini today compared to $650 for this new iPad mini is quite a markup, and obviously for existing users that might be out of their budget, and of course a high barrier to entry means that consumers won't buy your device. Now I do want to mention that the source does mention that maybe this iPad mini Pro is going to be a standalone product and the iPad mini 6 will come at the same price with the same design and the new chips. So if you're looking for the size and don't really care about the new design, then of course you can settle for the iPad mini 6. Though he doesn't make that super clear, so yeah, I'm not really sure about this report. Now the final thing he mentions that actually makes some sense is a release in the second half of 2021. Now Min-Chi Kuo also confirmed this, so I'm inclined to believe that maybe the iPad mini 6 launches alongside the iPad 9 at the September event. But that's about it for this pretty interesting report. Let me know in the comments below, would you buy an iPad mini Pro if it was $650? Anyways, thank you for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe for the latest Apple news and rumors. Check out the video in the icon above about the M1X Mac Mini. And on that note, I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya, peeps.